Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach. What's going on, guys? Hope you're well. We're going to do another preview today. So what do we got? We got Hawthorn, Melbourne, North Melbourne, Port Adelaide, and Richmond. So this will be the third instalment of the club previews. So we'll have one more after this, and hopefully have the club previews smashed out before February. So just wanted to first start off with this, but if anyone is considering Rowan Marshall, well, we've sort of been talking about it already, but Harry Boyd, Sample Ruck, looks like he's going to get picked up, and the words you never want to see. St Kilda has been in the market for a backup ruck to help out Rowan Marshall. Look, they always seem obsessed with helping him out. His ability to play forward, rah. The bloke loves it as a sole ruck, but they seem really, really keen on sharing things up for Rowan. But yeah, just wanted to put that one out there just in case you had him at your R1. It's something to consider. It's not to put a line through him, but it's something to think about. And Carlton, I think it happened, well, it's probably a week or so ago now, but Nick Newman going down for a year, the season ender. It's very brutal for him, very brutal for Carlton, but in Supercoach land, it opens up a lot of points. That's a guy who averaged, what was it, like somewhere in the hundreds, I think. So who's going to fill that gap? We love a halfback flanker who can find a bit of the footies. And you initially go to like Adam Sard picking up some of the slack. Does Sam Doherty start to go halfback as opposed to wing? I still don't think I'd be too keen on him. Do I dare throw the name out? Zach Williams. Do I even say Zach's name in these parts? But maybe one to just monitor over the pre-season. But look, there's always going to be some positions up for grabs, and particularly when a superstar goes down. Superstar's a bit strong. He's a star of the game, but a gun scorer. So just keep that on your radar. Also wanted to get a bit of a temperature check from you guys, because you know I like to throw a bit of a question out there for you from time to time. You may not be into your tennis, but if you are, you know, you'll be all about this. And even if you're not, you've probably been living under a rock if you haven't heard of this. But the Tony Jones stuff and Novak Djokovic, and I even just want to temperature check your thoughts on Nick Kyrgios. I've spoken about him briefly in the past before, and what are your thoughts on Nick, and how do you view him? I mean, I hear people getting outraged. I'm listening to Kane Corns going off on the radio. I don't know. I feel like we're viewing him wrong. Like, yeah, he's frustrated me for many years at times as well, and he can be an absolute dick from time to time, but I'm sort of sick of hearing the conversation of, he's got that much talent, he could win a slam if he just applied himself. I don't think he's ever going to do that. I think for years we had that same conversation. I think it's just about time that we view Nick for what he is, and he's purely an entertainment product. I mean, you don't want him as your footy club. You don't want to follow him week in, week out, die hard, hopeful that he'll win. But if you look at him like a movie, geez, you're going to get an interesting couple of hours more often than not. And, you know, it's certainly got some shock value. That's what Nick is, but yeah, he looked out of shape the other day. I feel like he's always been a loose unit, but he's always had that potential that if he strung it together, almost like he did at Wimbledon, he could do anything. But now he just looks like a bloke that plays hoops in the backyard and then jumps on the couch and plays PlayStation. He did not look in great nick. So, but yeah, the Tony Jones stuff, I mean, if you've missed it, he was, you know, serenading the Serbian fans with a bit of a derogatory sort of chat towards Novak. You know, he's a has-been, he's overrated, and then get out of the country or kick him out or something like that, which apparently was all in good fun. And look, I'm not a Novak Djokovic fan. In fact, I can't stand him. But I feel like, TJ, what were you thinking, mate? I mean, what are you thinking? I mean, I think it was a poor attempt at some humour. It's probably been blown a smidgen out of proportion, but geez, it was one of those moments where you go, how did you think that was going to land any good, really? Particularly the last comment about digging up the past with the whole COVID stuff and booting him out of the country. That was never going to land, TJ. Just like that kiss didn't land on Beck's cheek that time. But, oh, geez, he finds a way, doesn't he? He's just a bloke that feels cringeworthy all the time. And sometimes it's funny, and other times you're just like, oh, what's he doing here? But yeah, just wanted to get a bit of a temperature check. Look, I don't think it's, you know, some people are like, how does this guy have a job? He's got to be sacked. I definitely don't think it's, look, it was a silly thing to say. It was a poor attempt at humour. Apparently a bit of backstory with the banter and the Serbian fans. Didn't land, Tony. Did not land. But, Novak. God, I hope Alcaraz knocks him out tonight. I cannot stand the bloke. Look, respect him. I mean, he is probably the best of all time. In fact, as much as I love Fed, Rafa, statistically, Novak is the greatest of all time. I hate to say it, but as a bloke, shit bloke. Anyway, that's a little bit of tennis talk for you, and just wanted to get your thoughts on that. But this video will be time-stamped in terms of the clubs, because it will be, and more often than not, is a bit of a longer video, so I time-stamp them. And first things first is the Hawks. So we've got 3 players from here, and a few guys that have served us well over the past. And look, Will Day is the first guy I want to talk about, and he's currently in my team. If you've been keeping up with any of my team updates, just feel like you're getting that nice mix of bit of value as well as premium potential. Now, last year his average actually dropped due to some injury-affected games, slow start. So, first things first, he does have some concerns with the body. He does. But he's not the first guy in his early 20s to struggle and then produce some really consistent great footy in the peak of their powers. I think everything we've seen from a fully fit Will Day says superstar. He's that rangy, covers the ground type of outside guy, but he can also be pretty hard in and under, and he's got class. He can finish. Because of his height, he's 191. He's actually a bit of a threat above his shoulders as well. So I don't think I have to convince you on his scoring potential. I'll talk about what I reckon he can average in a moment, but for a guy to just, he just burst onto the scene 23, wasn't it, I think? I think he missed the start of the season as well. No, he didn't. But look, he's just teased. Teased is a bit hard. I think he's shown us plenty of footy that's been quality, and we are seeing this score of 10 and a sub-affected 40, which I think probably less than 50% time on ground, 54. So again, he was probably heading to a handy 80 odd. Nothing to damage the average too bad, but look at that. The scores of 53, 40, and 10 in the last 3 rounds took his average well down. And he had an interrupted start to the year, and did start in a manner that you would expect, pretty slowly. Interrupted pre-season often happens, but when he got going, it was outstanding numbers. And this is a guy that his ceiling is there, so he can, a bit like Bontempelli, he doesn't need a stack of the footy to really score well and really hurt you. You look at this, 26 touches, bang, a 137, 27, 142. Even in his year before, you talk about some blokes, they need 35 to go 130 plus, but, Will Day does not. And he likes to kick the footy, and I'm a massive fan of him. And I just feel like when people talk about who's Hawthorn's best player, he's right there in the discussion. Yet we've got him priced at a 91. I just feel like he broke out in 23, and now we've got him still as a star player, but because of that poor end to last year with injury and different things, he's a bit unders. And I just feel like he could take his average to around 110. I mean, if you had to hold me to it, I'd say it's probably more of a 107, 108 type of job. But I'm not sure what his pre-season's looking like now. But hopefully there's nothing too bad, because obviously he would have had that... he would have had some surgery going on here. So maybe it's a slight delay to his pre-season, because he has had concerns. Maybe a Hawthorn fan out there can give me a bit of an up-to-date feedback on him. But I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that he was, still making his way back, not quite hitting absolutely every full contact session just yet. But how are we going for time? We better... Shorty nearly timed himself out. Jesus Christ. Look, I think the upside with Day is clear. He's got that ceiling. He's probably only gone below 100 average here because of the end to last year. Now, look, you can pick and choose anything you like in stats. Sometimes it can be dangerous to to chop and change and take certain bits here and there and not count others. But let's say, what has he gone? The last three, I reckon his average would have been over 100 before. So what's that? 40, 93. So 103 points in the last 3 games. So not a great end of the year due to some interruptions. If we go times 16, call it, that. If we take away the 103 and then divide it by the 13 games, 104. So, in essence, cut it up whichever way you want. And I don't know what happened here in round 21. Was he just quiet? Was he holding on to something because he got subbed the next couple of games? Sluggish start because of an interrupted pre-season. Poor finish because of an injury. Man, if he gets rolling through the pre-season, this guy, he's got 110 in him. Absolutely got 110 in him. So I'm happy to really back him in. Yeah, I want to see him fit and firing on the field, but if he does, sign me up, mate. I'm pretty excited about him. Next up, I've got James Sicily. And I think, for me, he's a guy that's treated me pretty well over the past. I've had him in a couple of these years where he went 110. But for a few different reasons, he is below what many would expect him to be, or at least where he has been previously. 110 plus, pushing 115 the last couple, but last year's below 100. And that was for a couple of reasons. He got tagged early, but that's part of it. You can't really give him an excuse there. It's part of the game. But he was thrown forward at times. Now, it's hard to really judge exactly how much forward time he did spend, because you'd probably have to, I wonder, there is, I can't remember what it is. There's a page that, I think it's that DFS or something. Leave that with me. What are my thoughts on him overall? If he's a key defender, interceptor, key ball user out of the back line for Hawthorn, then he is going to dominate 110 plus. My only thoughts around that. Now, let me see if I can break this down here. Sicily. Will it tell us if we select 2024? God. Haven't really dabbled in this, but I'm pretty sure this website has a section where it'll tell you... Oh, fuck, here it is. What do we got? So the Greens defensive 50 forward. So what are we looking for? So we'll take green and blues. I suppose the only thing we can really say here is late in the year, the yellows and the reds bobbed up a bit more, which suggests to me he did spend a bit more time forward, and maybe it happened here as well. That's probably an inexact science, an inexact way to do it. You probably have to drill down a bit more, but safe to say he did play forward a lot, more than usual. And then we get Battle to the club, we get Barras to the club. And I guess when he was averaging these 110 pluses, he was the key guy down there in terms of ball use and distributing. He would have some ridiculous numbers. I remember he had like nearly 40 sometimes. He had that 43, and he was just like the designated kicker along with Carl Amon. Now, there's two ways of looking at it. Barras and Battle come along. Sicily doesn't have to go anywhere near a key forward anymore. He can just float off and intercept fantastic. But the concern for me is because Hawthorn are quite well stocked in their key defensive stakes, that probably one area they're not as stocked is their key forwards. I think Kalsha Deer's injured at the moment. Mitch Lewis is coming back, but, there's he's coming off a long extended period of time injured. 1 month ago, back issue, facing delayed start. So my worry is that they will continue to trial, and even within the game, if things aren't working out, bang, throw Sicily forward. Because unfortunately for us, he actually plays it quite well. There were times where he went forward. I think it was a game in South Australia. He went forward and he nearly won him the game. So he can kick goals and he can take marks. Now, he is also struggling with a bit of a shoulder surgery over the off-season. So again, like Will Day, is coming back off a bit of a delayed start. Anyway, I'm sure I read that somewhere. But so for me, once upon a time, Sicily was like the main guy back there, plenty of footy. When now you're going to have to spread that across, because Battle likes to intercept and get involved with the chippy chip game. You got aim on. You've even got someone like Scrimshaw. There's quite a few guys back there that run and carry and make Hawthorn as dangerous as they are. I've definitely strongly considered him at times this pre-season because he's a favourite of mine. But with everything within that, I'm just happy to wait and see how it truly looks. I just think it's a strong chance that they throw him forward at times during the year within the games, and that's the last thing we want. There's nothing worse than, we've all had these guys that, like Petrarca when he gets thrown forward, or different players that, if things aren't going great, the coach will just change them to a bit of a shake-up secondary position. Nothing worse than being like, all right, great opportunity for Sicily to just rack up 10 marks, intercepts everywhere, and you're listening to the quarter-time thing, and it looks like they're throwing Sicily forward to change rah-rah-rah, or so-and-so goes down in the first quarter. Yep, they've swung Sicily forward because Mitch Lewis has pinged a hammy. It does your head in. So I'm happy to pass for now, but he's a favourite of mine. Wouldn't rule him out going 105 plus, but for now, just happy to wait and see. Next up, we've got Lloyd Meek. And I spoke about him a bit on the Ranking Our Premium Rucks video. He was a guy that I missed the boat on last year. He did really come on in leaps and bounds. I thought he might not have the consistency, or I thought Reeves might work his way back, but he's a fantastic up-and-coming ruck. He's 26, but he's still coming into his prime, really. I think now as a ruckman, he's been plying his trade at Freo and Hawthorn and finally got his opportunity and had some great numbers. Sort of in that Shane Mumford role of ruckman where they love high number of hit-outs, slightly lower on the possession count, but I dare say a lot of that is contested. I reckon he probably averages around 13 touches and probably more than half would be contested, I reckon. He strikes me as a on the knees, dishing the handball out sort of guy. Yeah, look at that. So, average of about 15 touches and 8.4 contested. So that's his mode. That's how he likes to play. So it wouldn't shock me if he takes his game next level and bumps this up with a full season as his number one ruck. Confidence can take you a long way as well, and he would have felt established last year. He could well become a 110 type of ruck. I'm happy to play elsewhere. I'm not ruling him out. Like, I think he could... put it this way. I think an average of about 100 is probably the minimum. I think he's really arrived and he's too good of a player to not continue this type of form as the main guy, coming to his prime as a ruckman. I like the way he goes about it. I suppose you can get Tom de Koning for about the same price, a bit less. That's the way I've played it. But Meek is certainly an appealing option and one that I could certainly see having a really good 4 to 5 years as the Hawks' number one ruck. So that's all I had for the Hawks. If you reckon I missed anyone, please let me know. We're not so much touching on rookies at the moment because I'll do separate videos for the rookies and, it's a long enough video as is. So we're mainly focusing, aside from Richmond, mainly focusing on established players. So we'll move over to Melbourne, and obviously Clayton Oliver is the first one that comes to mind. I'm going to keep it short and sharp with Clary because I feel like we've spoken about him so much. Plain and simple, he has to be in your side. For a guy who has delivered numbers like this before, to be at this price, you got to have him. I think, talk about risk versus reward. I do not see him getting back to 120. But if he has a good pre-season, gets back in that routine of professional footy and standards, he could definitely average 110. And we could have a guy at price at 83 averaging some huge numbers. Yeah, of course, the risk is there. He could stuff up off the field again. Maybe he never finds his way back. This could be a wayward career and we're just in the midst of it really going off the rails. That could be, but put it this way, we're all going to pick him. You don't want to miss it if he does go 110. And if you do get on that poor side of it and he does struggle and he gets injured again or he's not quite back and maybe he never will be, well, we all sink in the same ship. So I think it's one that we've got to pick, ride it wherever, but we'll all be in it together, I think. He's a lock. You don't want to miss it because, yeah, everything has a risk attached to it. But I feel like the potential for Clary to come back, get a full pre-seasoning, because we all know his troubles off the field and how it affected him on the field. But the guy can still find the footy. It's all about the fitness for mine. He didn't look fit at times last year, so he's a big watch on how that rig is going through pre-season. But he's got to be in your team, I'm sure, unless we get any hiccups over the off-season. He'll be one of the more popular picks. And Christian Petrarca is another one that had, for different reasons, such an eventful year last year. It was a highly publicised injury where he had quite a graphic injury, and not graphic but impactful, and he was put back out there against Collingwood, and a lot of talk about whether that should have happened and could he get traded, did he want to get traded, all this talk. It certainly sounded like he was very pissed off with the club. I think if he could have gone, he probably would have. But Petrarca strikes me as a guy that is a deep thinker, a driven guy. I get the feeling that he's just going to absorb everything that's happened, except that for the near future, at least for 12 months, I'm a demon, and I'm going to put my best foot forward, and I'm going to respond like a true professional and dominate. So it wouldn't shock me if he tears this year apart. What really hurts that, and he was in my team not that long ago, but what hurts is that he is injured again. And given everything, it has to really put his season opener in some sort of doubt. A cracked rib. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those injuries that if it was anyone else, it doesn't seem too full on. But clearly there were those issues last year that were very intense. I think it was, at one point was some serious concerns over his overall health. I don't know if it was life-threatening or not, but, it rocked him, absolutely rocked him. We all saw how emotional he was. So I think if it wasn't for this injury, I'd be red hot on him, because he's a guy that if he's running on full cylinders, he's a 110 plus. He's done it for 4 years in a row, and probably last year I reckon was well on his way to. I mean, he was 64 at about half time. He probably wasn't quite 110 last year, but we're only halfway through the year, and he's a tried and true proven premium. So I think if it wasn't for that rib injury already, a lot of us would be looking to start him because he's slightly unders as a primo. But unfortunately, given everything that he's gone through, they're going to take no risks with him. And an injury to the ribs during January, I'm going to have to pass. He's a guy I do love watching. I really hope he does get back to his best, but one that I'm happy to just watch on from the sidelines for now. Trent Rivers is a guy that I'm also going to chuck in there, and probably not one that I'm, not strongly considering at all. I think he could be a handy draft option. We've seen him, again, when all this stuff was going down with Petrarca and Oliver, we've seen him get midfield time. And you look at that round 18 game, and there was a stretch here where he did have some great footy. This kid has really developed from a nice halfback flanker to, I think, someone that the D's see as a real midfield option. And I reckon this will be reflected in here. Rivers. So, we're looking at probably a strong stretch of midfield time from round 15 onwards. And that didn't exactly reflect in great numbers. Probably some better numbers. Like the raw numbers, 30 touches, 25. some handy tackle numbers there at times, some handy clearance numbers for sure, with some 7s and 8s and 7s. So I think he'll definitely be part of the Melbourne midfield at some stage over the next 2-3 years. I'm just not sure if it's now, because they do have quite a few guys in there, and Petrarca, Viney, Oliver. That just rolls off the tongue when you think of Melbourne. And I still think they are going to be the main guys if they are all fit. And I think we're going to need Rivers to be more than just the 4th or 5th in line, because sometimes it might be Sparrow, or, sometimes Pickett might get, he's always that impact Shea Bolton, Dusty Martin type of guy in there. So I still think Rivers may be slightly on the out. He'll be in that midfield rotation, but probably not enough in there to go, look, we're going to pick him, because it's not like he's cheap. Like, those numbers, he did average nicely, so he's probably in that range of, we're picking a guy to explode and take his game towards 100. I don't quite see him doing that. SuperCoach is open too for the public. I should have probably mentioned that off the top, but that's exciting. So 462, certainly in that range of we need you to explode, mate. I don't see that happening. I could see an improvement in the numbers, no doubt about it. I think he's a player for the future. If we get an injury to Petrarca, or if Oliver's really out of touch, he might be a guy that you might pick up if the cards fall his way. But in terms of starting, unless we get a real indication from the coaching staff, then I'm probably happy to just wait and see what he produces, because I think they also need, him wheeling and dealing with Salem off halfback, and they do need a bit of drive there too. Halfback leads me to my next guy. We'll talk about Caleb Windsor. This one's a bit of a calling all Melbourne fans to tell me what you've been seeing on the track, but there was a bit of talk that Windsor might be training with the halfbacks and deployed around there. If so, he is awkwardly priced, but he'd have to be something to consider. There it is. Look, he's about 320, I think. I think it's somewhere around there. He'd have to be a slight consider. Certainly a draft smoky. But a top pick, showed poise at the level, nice mover, nice ball user. And then there's the talk that, he's mainly played wing, half forward. Pre-season training looks like he's being used off half back. So I just think he's someone to take a look at and just keep on your radar. He's probably not cheap enough, and there's probably others that are more promising. There's always, like we say, there's always risk, there's always reward. There's probably a bit more risk about him taking it next level compared to some others at that price. But I do like what he has to offer. He's a bit of a classy player. I think the D's are still finding a little bit out about their makeup, so particularly off half back. So one to watch, one to definitely watch and keep in mind. Be very keen to see how he is deployed over the pre-season. Now, the last two clubs, Port and Richmond, I don't have a stack to talk about, but this next club, North Melbourne, I certainly do. And we're going to start with a guy that I think's probably one of the main locks of the year, maybe the number one lock. It's Caleb Daniel. Straightforward for me. He has averaged 90 plus on many years before, and that's when he just rolls around at halfback. Halfback is confirmed for him at North Melbourne. Lock him in. He's a forward, available as a forward. He'll play halfback. He's cheap. He's at a club that needs him, and not only is he a bargain buy, but I think we'll keep him all year. I think you're getting a premium for a ridiculously bargain-based price, which is pretty juicy for us. I don't think I need to spend too much time on him. North Melbourne halfback flankers have been very, very kind to us. You think about Jack Zeeble, Aaron Hall, even Luke McDonald went off at one stage, and we've had Harry Sheasel, we've had Colby McKercher. Like they love to use their halfback flankers to run and gun and score a lot of points, a bit of possession footy. So I think he will be a fantastic pick, and certainly one that I've seen in every single side, and rightfully so. Harry Sheasel is another guy that I want to just touch on. I don't think I've got to convince you too much. Yeah, he's expensive, but I reckon it's absolutely worth it. So We talk about those next-gen type of midfielders, and Will Day, like I mentioned before, he's one of those guys, but we're talking Will Ashcroft, Nick Dacos, like these guys that are just so highly touted coming through the ranks, and we see it early. That's why I've been so excited about Ashcroft, and same with Sheasel. We've seen it early. Fantastic first year, ridiculous second year, took it next level. But he took his game from playing a bit of half back and playing it bloody well. Start of the year, like, look at these numbers, fantastic. And then he did move into the centre bounce. And I remember thinking, oh, geez, playing so good off half back, probably good for North Melbourne, but is it good for my SuperCoach side? And the numbers should reflect this. So there you go, look at that. Improvement or increase in the numbers from round 7 in the centre bounce. But it's interesting to note, this guy's gone nuts, nearly averaging 120. And the highest centre bounce attendance he had was an 88 in round 11, but largely in the 40s and 60s and even lower than that. So, I mean, he absolutely goes past. Like, he plays more time in there than Tom Powell for me. Like, he's in there as much, like, more than Simpkin for mine. Will Phillips, get out of there, mate. You know, unless you're tagging, mate, piss off. You know what? Sheasel is the man there now. He's their best player as far as I'm concerned. I love LDU, don't get me wrong. Cherry's a gun. They're all important, but Sheasel's your match-winning poster boy. So I think he's a guy, there's not many out there that are capable of averaging 120. And I think it's a simple case of, in 5 years, remember that year we could pick Sheasel in the back line? I mean, how good was that? A bit like Dacos last year. Now he's pure mid and he will be forever. So don't miss this chance. He's a gun. Get him in your side. Pay the money. He'll be a nice ride for you. Colby McKercher. We mentioned his name before, and he has been in my team a lot this pre-season, and I love him. He's one of my boys. Beautiful left foot kick. Crafts the footy just fantastically. Like, not just a booming long kick, but he finds space on the ground that you're watching on TV and you didn't even think there was space there for the player to run into, and he just drops these kicks beautifully, a bit like Kitty Coleman. And in different year last year, struggled to find his place at the senior level, played midfield, got injured. Then they said, look, let's just get some games in this kid. Half-back flank, Sheasel's moved up the ground. Let's just almost replace him. And the numbers were very similar. Like, I remember this game, he had a shitload of kick-ins against the Eagles. 37 touches, 146. Now, the talk is this pre-season that he's probably moving up the ground as well. I read some training notes the other day. He was playing mainly in that midfield rotation, but did also feature at half-back. So it wouldn't... Oh, here we go. This will be interesting. It wouldn't shock me if we saw him bit of half-back, bit of midfield, but I'd love for him to settle at half-back. Is this a video? This isn't what I want. I want a damn article. What's going on here? Oh, God. Alright, that was probably a video. Anyway, my one drawback with him is that North Melbourne's midfield's actually pretty good. You know, like we were just talking about before, LDU, Sheasel, Simpkin, the skipper's in there. You've got Powell and Parker as well, Wardlaw. My concern is that if they do give him time in the midfield, at his price, you need him to either be a dominant halfback or a dominant mid. I don't see him being a dominant mid just yet. He might be better for the run, but I just don't know if there's enough room to grow if he's not established. Like, if he's not in their top 3 or 4 midfield rotations and he's not quite always their kicking guy, where is he? For me, he strikes me, he could be a bit of Errol Goulden style of play. Give him the footy, 30% centre bounce time. Give him the footy, though, when he's on a wing. Run and carry off half-back. He's a distributor. I think they'll want the ball in his hands more often than not. My only concern is that he's at a price, much like, who was it we talked about before? Rivers. He's at that price range where you need him to go bang. He needs to take his game right up towards 100. So I think he's got the class to do it, and I'm a big fan of him. Really keen to see how North Melbourne use him and exactly where he plays most of his footy this year. So one of my favourite players, and like we saw with Dacos, I think he averaged 91 in his first year. Sheasel 99. 88 for McKerch is pretty good considering there was a 5 in there and a bit of a slow start. So he's all class. Super keen to see what he does from here on out. He's a big watch for mine. One of my favourites. We'll pick him a lot in the future. Just got to wait and see if we'll pick him in 2025. Next guy for North Melbourne is Luke Parker. He's priced at $343K. Of course, comes to the Roos as a bit of that experienced body, mentor type of guy for an up-and-coming club. He is available as a forward, which brings the interest, of course, but I've been pretty keen on a few of these Roos. Parker's not one that I'm keen on. Like I've said a couple of times already, there's a lot of mouths to feed in that midfield. And for Parker, he is a guy that can play forward. Like, he's quite good one-on-one. He's had impact there already in the past. And I just see him playing about a 50-50 split, maybe even more time forward. But I think the real value for North Melbourne with Parker is right now. The training standards, off the field, leadership, building these young guns up, because North Melbourne aren't in a phase where they're just adding Luke Parker in to, help them win another couple of games. Luke Parker's there to develop the Sheasels, McKerches, LDU to a lesser extent, Tom Powell, all these young guys, Wardlaw coming through, is to make them better footballers. So I don't think I'm going to select him. Well, in fact, I know I'm not going to select him, because not only do I sort of iffy on him as a selection as a whole, but then there's no need for him really, because our forward lines are stacked. We got McRae, we got Daniel, we got Filippo, and then we've got Horn Francis in everyone's team. So I don't really feel like we need to pick him. Not one I've considered. If you think he is a good selection, please mount your case in the comments, because I'm pretty much just saying no to Parker. But yeah, gun player, been great over the years, but I'm absolutely happy to pass on him for now. We'll move on to Port Adelaide, and I just mentioned Horn Francis, and he just picks himself. Like, I would have spoken about it. One of my first videos, one of my first TikToks said this guy is going 110, and that was before we got the forward eligibility. So I think he's going to average 110. I think he'll go past Rosie as, sort of that second best midfielder for Port. He's a different type of midfielder to Rosie and Butters. He's got that extra bit of grunt, a bit of that Dangerfield burst away, just hustle and bustle, just muscle his way out of packs, and can kick goals. So Butters, you can lock and load him. Absolute superstar. But Horn Francis will hurt you in a different way. Love him or hate him, this guy is destined to be a superstar of the game. He's not even 22 yet. Lock him into your forward line. It's as simple as that. The other clear issue or reason for thought around Port Adelaide is, well, Dan Houston is gone. Like we mentioned off the top with Nick Newman, who's going to fill that gap? Where are these points going to go? Some people have mentioned Jace Burgoyne, who did have some good games late last year, but the word is from a few notes I was reading about Port Adelaide's training. He is not playing half-back, he's more so wing. So it doesn't seem like he's earmarked for that position at this point in time. Kane Farrell's the other one that may be in consideration. I'm personally not interested. Yes, he's a beautiful kick, but I just don't see him as a guy that's going to... I just can't see it. I mean, there is a world where he could become their designated kicker and take this from 82 to 90, but I just don't think he's got the ball-winning ability to go nuts. I just think he's a guy that's forever going to average somewhere between 17 and 23 touches. I mean, unless he becomes such an effective, user of the ball and takes more kick-ins and picks up that slack, which I guess is possible, but he's at a price which is really meaning that he needs to, again, McKercher and Trent Rivers style, he needs to take this to premium status. And yes, there's a void there to be filled. I don't think it'll be fully Farrell's responsibility. Burton still takes a lot of kick-ins. Logan Evans is a handy player as well. I don't see all the responsibility and all those Houston points just going specifically to one player. I think they'll share it around. Yeah, Farrell might increase his numbers. No doubt. He might pick up some of the slack, and he might take his average to 90. But that's not going to be enough. So, happy to pass on him. Very much open to your thoughts as to who takes that role. And if you're a big Farrell fan, let me know. But not one that I've considered so far this year. We'll move on to the Tigers. Jaden Short is one that I have thought about. And that does sort of come off the back again. We're talking about absences left from halfback flankers. Well, Dan Rioli leaves. And Jaden Short, who is unders, is every chance to pick up a fair bit of slack. And I guess the difference between Farrell and Short is that Short's done it before. Like, he still takes a lot of kick-ins, but it's a bit split between Rioli. But when you're looking closer, Vlastuin actually does still take a lot of kick-ins. And I've had a few Richmond people say, no, he's not going to increase too much. Vlastuin will pick up a lot of slack, or maybe a youngster, you know. So he does average quite consistently in the mid to high 90s 4 years prior. He did start to move a bit further up the ground, and we've seen him played in the middle at times, and he's been thrown around trying to use his ball use elsewhere. But 82, sound like a broken record here. He's at a price where we're not just picking him to take it up to 89 or 93. He needs to get back to these high 90s numbers. Happy to have a look through the pre-season. I think he vaguely featured in a couple of early formations on my side. Hasn't featured for some time. I'd much rather pick some of these other guys, like pay a bit extra for McKercher, or just go bang for full premium. But again, very much open to discussion in terms of who fills that gap and who is taking that role. Does Vlastuin just take a bit more? Is it more of a share? Does Jaden Short just go back, stuff any midfield time? He's our defensive kicker now. Be very interesting to see how they do shake it up. At this point, it's probably one that we've got to watch through the pre-season. I mean, he's got merit because he's got premium numbers before. But he really has to be that handball receive, kick-out guy. Because he doesn't intercept a stack. He's more of an outside receiving type of player. So he's got to have some heavy kick-in duties to be effective. And he probably got away from that a little bit last year. But some Richmond fans might be able to have a bit of extra insight. And that's the only main one I had for Richmond. We all know they're going to struggle for 2025. Like I said, mainly talking established players, but in terms of rookies, you got Gibcus, you got Smiley. People talk about, is it Callum Smith? People talking a bit of hype about him getting more opportunities. And of course, Tommy Lynch, Ford, rookie type of price. His body could fall apart at any moment, but he's worth considering. So we'll probably talk more about those in the future videos. And of course, I've got the number one pick in Sammy Lawler. So there's enough to like about Richmond from a rookie point of view, but we'll save that for when we get a bit more of a look at them in some practice matches. But at this point in time, I think we've just about covered everything I wanted to cover there. So I'll put this one together and hopefully have it up for you tonight. Although I will be pretty pressed for time because I am going over to a mate's at 7. So we'll see how we go. I'll wrap it up there. But yeah, thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back again for another video previewing our premium midfielders and, of course, rounding out the rest of the previews pretty soon. But thanks, guys. Chat to you later. Cheers.